Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another edition to Puff Daddy Live. We are continuing our adventure in South America on the Hunter. So, what we need to do is kill an animal around here, I think. Let's get our quad out just in case. We're gonna run down some animal tracks, and then we'll get off here and track it down. This quad really scares them away. It's pretty loud. Ah. A beacon point so we don't run out of the area. They did that a couple times yesterday. Oh, good morning, Josh. How's the world treating you today? How is the world treating you today? Bravo. How was your New Year's?
Yeah, just chilled out at home with the daughter. Not much to do.
Yeah.
How was yours?
We went over to my lady's mom and dad's house. Um, and had sauerkraut and pork and um, grilled hot dogs and stuff. And her brother from
Not all
Texas.
tracks lead to animals, so I always apply the sniff test. If the droppings are fresh, your game is close by. But if you find older droppings, that animal is long gone, and you should look for the more recent trail.
Um, but her brother came in from Texas, and so we went and visited him for a while. He was over there at mom and dad's. Uh,
Nice.
yeah, it's like okay, so the thing is like, um, I met my girlfriend like
Yeah.
30 years ago,
Yeah.
and it was at a pool hall named Granny's, and somebody, well, I know she had a black eye, and back then I used to beat people up. I was a pretty had a pretty mean temper and would beat people up for virtually no reason. But I was always a very chivalrous guy. And so I had noticed that she had a black eye. And I'm like, girl, who gave you a black eye? And she said, it was such and such, and he was there. And so I went over there getting ready to stomp his guts out. And everybody's like, no, Roy, no, Roy, no, 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 no. It was an accident. And so what had happened was they were shooting pool, and he jumped the cue ball up, and it hit her in the eye and gave her a black eye. And so she was like a little kid, at the time, because she's 6 years younger than I am. Nowadays, I'm 48, she's 42. It's no big deal. But back when I was, 18 years old, she was only 12, so it's a huge difference. And so I think that like put a little X on her heart back then because I was going to defend her honor and I didn't even know her. And so, whatever. Nothing ever, whatever with that. Except she got to know who I was and whatever and blah, blah, blah. Well, she had older brothers. And one of her older brothers, which is, well, okay, so in school, you're going to find this hard to believe, but I was voted number one stud in school. Her brother was voted number two stud in school. All right, so we always had this competition anyhow because he was number two and I was number one. Well, we ended up he pulled a knife on me and I grabbed the knife and I stuck it to his throat and I told him, I said, you know what, you ever freaking do that to me again and I will kill you. And so we ended up, he put the knife away and he didn't like because it was at Granny's. Granny's was like the local hangout. And so we were at Granny's again. And so we started to fight, because I had embarrassed him in front of like everybody and he was, number two stud in school. And so he had to prove his manhood or whatever. Well, so we fought. The guy never even hit me, not once. And and I still have the scar. I don't know if you can see it or not. There's a scar right here. Well, I hit him in the mouth and his tooth got lodged in my knuckle. Well, then my hand swelled up like this into a perfect box and was like beet red because the human mouth is one of the most disgusting things there are. And so, I had to have surgery on that hand. All right. And so the guy never hit me, not one time. But because I had hit him the way I did, I had to have surgery. Well, the insurance company was supposed to pay for it. They never did. I left. I went to the Marine Corps, spent my time in the Marine Corps, and then I went and I traveled, the world, lived in a bunch of different states and a couple of countries and all that fun stuff, and was, the prodigal son. I went away, I made my fortune, and I came back. So when I came back 20 years later, they still had that bill waiting for me. Well, over 20 years, they had sued me numerous times. And they had, collected interest that whole time. And so, after 20 years of being sued over and over and over and over, and interest accruing for 20 years, the $3,500 bill that was supposed to be paid by the insurance company was now $31,000. And so when I moved back here to Ohio, I got a letter in the mail saying, hey, we're going to garnish your wages if you don't pay us such and such amount. So it was like $350 a week that they wanted on my garnishments. And so I went and I talked to the company. I'm like, look, I didn't know anything about this. I've already spoke to a lawyer. The lawyer says, I'm a great candidate for bankruptcy if whatever. I'm like, I have decent credit. I don't want to ruin my credit. Can we work something out? And the guy was a total ass to me. And he's like, well, we want like $350 a week. That's what we're going to get from our garnishment. I'm like, but if I file bankruptcy, you're not going to get a fucking thing. Well, you could do that if you want. And just total ass-hatting me. I'm like, can we come to some kind of a decent arrangement? $350 a week. That's more than most people pay for anything. And he was just, we finally came to an agreement. I was like, look, I'll pay you $300 a month, whatever. And we ended up settling on $600 a month. Okay. So 2 payments of $300 a month every 2 weeks.
Which is not bad.
Which is shit, but it was better than $350 every week. Stop that, I'm streaming.
Telling our story.
Yeah, I'm telling the story about your brother. And so, stop, rewind, play. So, I only set up an arrangement with this guy so I could have time to speak with the lawyer so that them taking money out of my check, the garnishment, wouldn't take place. Because I was like, you know what? This guy's a fucking asshat. He's a dickhead. He's treating me like I'm some piece of shit. I'm here to try to rectify shit. And he's treating me like some fucking podunk bum. I'm like, he knows I have money. I was going to give, they could get $350 a week out of me for garnishments. So I got money. And he was treating me like some piece of shit. I'm like, fuck this guy. He's not getting a goddamn dime out of me. So I went down to make my first payment so that I would have 1 month. I had to get down to the courthouse right away because it was sitting on the judge's desk. My garnishment was. And, so I went, and the way it was set up, it was like the 17th of the month or something. So they're like, well, you only owe half of that payment. So give us $116 and you'll be good. The garnishment will be off the table and you won't owe anything until next month. All right. I'm like, okay, cool. No problem. So I paid that money, went and talked to the lawyer, started my bankruptcy. I'm like, this asshat is not getting a damn thing. And so, a long story short, bankruptcy, $31,000, all because I punched her brother in the mouth 30 years ago. Okay. Yeah, the guy never hit me, not one single time. I stomped his ass, and he won the fight. You know?
Yeah, in the long run, he'd won the fight.
Yeah, you know, he never touched me. He never laid a finger on me. But he cost me a bankruptcy. He cost me years of, you know, getting sued and stuff from the stupid hospital bill that was supposed to get paid by the insurance company. And so when I moved back here to Ohio, you know, I started talking with my lady, and she's like, "Do you remember me? You know, but when I first met you, I had a black eye, and da da da." I'm like, "Oh yeah, 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 yeah." You know, and so after we started dating, then I found out. I'm like, you know, I was telling stories because you know that's what I do. I tell stories. There's a million stories that I have. Um, and she's like, "That's my brother." And so, you know, just a long circle.
Cool,
Um,
man.
yeah, it really is. I'm like, holy crap. She's like, yeah, that's my brother. So, anyhow.
And you called me from California.
Huh?
And you called me from California.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I caught her from California. I mean, it was just a lot of stuff. You know, when I was living in California before I moved here 4 years ago. Um, and so I was calling around looking for a job, and I actually spoke with her on the phone. I'm like, yeah, this is Roy Hoskins, you know, blah, blah, blah. I'm looking for. She's like, who? Roy Hoskins. Yeah. So she's like, oh. And and so, you know, it was just like it's meant to be. You know.
She asked you out on a coffee date when you come back.
Um well, okay, so where she was working at was right behind my house. And so I would always go over there. It was a she had two jobs because she owes so much in freaking college tuition. Um, she was um, ripped off by one of those for-profit colleges that went out of business. That got sued and everything because they were double dipping and screwing people over and whatnot. Um, and we haven't seen an animal since we started, and I've been streaming for 17 minutes. Um, I mean, we haven't seen tracks or anything. Well, anyhow, moving on. Um, Stop, rewind, play. So she worked at a factory, but she worked at this store called Dollar General. Um, and so I would always go to this Dollar General, and she worked at this store a couple days a week to help pay for her college tuition. And so we would see each other often because that's where I did, you know, my minor shopping stuff. Um, and and so we just talked and we talked and we talked and we talked and we talked and um you know, it was like, and I you might think I'm crazy, but I've always been that guy. I could foretell the future, sort of. You know, I had knowledge of things that were gonna happen. But I could also see ghosts and stuff. Probably because I died when I was young and I came back. Um, I don't see dead people, but I know their presence and stuff. Okay. Um, but I could foretell people's future and just weird stuff. All right.
Oh, motherfucker.
Um, and so I had this ghost in the place that I live, that would crawl in bed with me. And I felt that it was a little girl that had died, and was just scared. It was a scared ghost of a little girl. And so she would crawl in bed with me for protection, it felt like. Well, I was tired one day because I'd been up for a couple of days straight because of pain. And this ghost crawled in bed with me, and I said, "Knock it off." And I yelled at this ghost, and so the ghost stopped, and I tried to go back to sleep, and then I felt it again. I yelled, "I told you to knock it off." Well, I was telling the people at Dollar General this story about this ghost. I'm like, look, I have this ghost, and I think it's a little girl that keeps crawling in bed with me, and I could like feel like the pressure of her crawling up the bed over top of me, like she was crawling over my legs, to get to like lay on me or something, on my arm or something, and like a little kid would do. And so I was telling this story to these people at Dollar General, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that's." Do you remember her name, babe?
Margaret.
They're like, "Oh, this is Margaret. We have her ghost come to our store and visit every once in a while." And so what had happened was a long time ago, 40, 50 years ago?
Yeah, in the 50s. That was a school.
Huh?
In the 50s.
Okay, so in the 50s, so 70 years ago, this little girl had been playing jump rope, and she fell through a culvert and died. And so I guess she had been haunting the area for a long time. Well, she found me, and because of my abilities, she thought I was a comfort zone, I guess. What the heck? Oh. It's a warning on the ATV. Anyhow. So, this little girl, had been haunting everybody for a long time, felt comfortable with me, and so she crawled in bed with me. And, so I had somebody that, deals with ghosts come over, a ghost hunter type person. And, I didn't tell them anything about the story. I just said, "Hey, look, I have a ghost that crawls in bed with me." And, so this person was like, "Yeah, I feel like it's a little girl. But it's not a mean spirit, it's just a ghost of a child. I don't think, we need to do an exorcism or, smudge or anything like that, to force the spirit out." And I was like, "Yeah, that's what I felt too, but I just wanted a second opinion." And I was like, I did feel that it was a little girl. And then it kind of confirmed it when I spoke with the people at Dollar General, because they said that there was a ghost of a little girl that would haunt their store once in a while named Margaret. And so, it just, one more chip on the pile of meant to be that she and I should take. And so, yeah, we just you know, one thing after another, after another, after another. Um, you know, just leading to the eventuality that we're supposed to date. She and I. So, anyhow.
We're sorry to meet.
But yeah, I met her, you know, it started 30 years ago. And, you know, fate just kept pushing and pushing and pushing. You know, I beat up her brother, and, you know, it cost me, you know, all this stuff because I beat up her brother. You know, and then I had this ghost come visit me so that I could talk to her about the ghost and, you know, get closer and to her. By unique experience type scenario. And just on and on and on and on and on and on. You know, and then, you know, it's just things, you know, like her dad being named Bob. In my whole life, I've had to joke about this is Bob's fucking fault. Bob did it. Bob did it. Bob. You know, just all kinds of stuff. Just, yeah, it's just weird. Just goes to show you that if you just let fate take over, the hell, I'm on the quad. If you just let fate take over, because I used to be such a control freak, all right, and so I would have to control everything in my life down to, you know, just everything, and it was a false. I don't know if we're gonna be able to get a quad through this crap. It was a false sense of happiness. Trying to control everything in my life. And so I made up my mind. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to let God take over, you know, let Kismet take over, whatever. Fate, whatever you want to believe. And I just release control to a higher power. And so things just have worked out for me by doing so. Well, bro, seriously, I have not seen an animal print like this whole time. Okay, 28 minutes. Not one single animal print.
Shroud is actually fucking streaming.
What's that?
Shroud, he's actually streaming.
Shroud.
Shroud, Shroud.
Yeah, that's what I said, Shroud.
Yeah, he's actually fucking streaming.
I don't know who that is.
He's a fucking huge. He's one of the big ones of Twitch. Like right now, he has 61,000 viewers.
Mm-hmm. One day I'll have that many. It's all internet not working.